I have no idea. I don't know if that I got it in the wrong. Mhm.
He's sending visitors and not a participant.
Needs to be patient, because nobody's gotten it at the moment. Yeah, see, it's like 1, 2 bar, and it won't let me. Can you get back to Zoom? That is a fabulous question. I have no idea. So clearly we are having some technical difficulties on our end that we are attempting to work through. Not terribly successfully, so I apologize. I am having to use my laptop, so I'm not going to be able to get everybody on the screen. We're still trying to. Zero 33217. Right. So go to which stopped my recording. But it, so it stopped my recording, but it's still.
Can you hear us? We're testing the microphone. Can you give a thumbs up if you can hear us? Okay,
Beautiful. I can hear you.
so we're just gonna close down Joanna's camera real quick because she was running it off her laptop, and then we'll get started in just 1 second. Okay, can everyone hear us?
Oh, I need it stopped.
Yep, okay, they can hear us.
Can you hear the echo?
No. Turn your sound down.
Oh, he does? I don't hear him or something.
Looks like you're live.
Ready to call the order? So any you want to check attendance?
Alan Hart
Here.
and Ray Dotson,
Here.
Mark Fila,
Here.
James Hairston. He's up there, sorry. Karen Ferrer, here, Ken Whitco.
Here.
Martin Pullman,
Here.
Todd Wolf. And Teresa King. And
Here.
Marie is unable to attend. I did see that one. Didn't get to read live. And then Mike, we have Councilmember Brandstetter. Okay, and we have Assistant Fire Chief Scott Adams,
Here.
and then we have Chief. Is it working?
I don't know if we're going to hear them.
Okay, and we have Chief Zorro. Did I hit everybody? I apologize. I don't have any. Sweet. Hopefully I did. Thanks. That's it.
Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes?
Move the minutes be accepted as presented.
That's it.
Twenty, do we have any public
Oh,
comments?
do we have all eyes? Sorry, I didn't do that. Was it all eyes for the minutes? Yes, sorry.
All those in favor?
Aye.
My first meeting, everyone.
No.
We're keeping track. And then I'll have one demerit. Any public comments?
No.
We have a guest speaker, Bryn Grimley, Communications Director for City of Lakewood.
Where do you want me to go, Fred?
Yeah, sorry. I was gonna say, often you can say on the side.
Yeah. I'll just jump in. Hi, everybody. I'm gonna be on the side. Well, good evening. I know I've met some of you before, but for those of you who are, I'm new to you, I guess I should say. Nice to meet you. My name is Bryn Grimley. I'm the communications manager for the city. And I previously worked as a communications manager for the city from 2017 to 2020. And then I left for a couple of years to go be the communications manager for the Pierce County Council for their office. And then I rejoined the city of Lakewood in July of this year. So for the last however many months that's been, I've just been getting myself reacquainted and brought up to speed on everything that happened during the 2 years while I was gone, and trying to kind of figure out the plan going forward. A little bit of information about the job that I do. So as a communications manager, I'm responsible for all of the city's social media. Currently, the city has a Facebook account, a Twitter account, an Instagram account, a YouTube channel as well as a LinkedIn account. And part of what I do is help communicate what we're doing at the city across those channels to the different audiences and share information. That includes hopping into different Lakewood groups as well and trying to share information with residents that way. I'm also responsible for the city's website. So in 2018, we did a complete overhaul and redesign of the website, and I spearheaded that effort. And the goal of that was just increase transparency to make it easier for the public to find information. And so part of what I do is maintain that and make sure information's out there. I'm the person who writes all the stuff that goes up on the city news and updates all those posts that go out. I also do the weekly newsletter that goes out on behalf of the city manager, and we mail that to the roughly 1,000 plus subscribers who get that every Friday. And I'm very excited because I just was able to hire someone to join me in communications. So up until November of this year, this was a one-person job, and it's a lot of responsibility. Oh, and I also produced the city magazine, which used to be 32 pages. Now we're down to 16, which is great. But I work with all the department directors, ask them what we should be highlighting. Previously, we only did 3 of these a year, and now we've moved it up to where we're going to be doing them quarterly, which has been a long time goal of the city council. So look for that in 2023. We'll be getting one each quarter. And this is another way in which we communicate with our residents to let folks know what we're doing and what things, you know, they might want to keep an eye out for. Obviously, a big one for people in the Lake City neighborhood is the road construction, and we know people want updates on that. As I was saying before I interrupted myself, I have now also hired a communications coordinator to help me, which is amazing because there's a lot to do. So he's getting his bearings right now and kind of getting a feel for everything, but we'll be a 2-person team to just continue with that communication effort. I also do a lot of the photography of our city events. And for example, this Saturday, we've got our tree lighting and holiday parade. So if you choose to join us, you'll probably see me out there running around, taking photo and video and all of that we'll then use to just promote all the awesome things that we're doing in the city. So that's a little intro about myself, and I am happy to join us. I think it might be a good kind of back and forth if you guys had questions for me specific to what it is we do communication-wise at the city. I'm happy to provide answers, or if there's anything in particular you want to know about.
What's the name of your coordinator?
His name is Derek Gibson, and he was actually with us this summer as an intern helping. One of the things we did with our website is we simplified it to a degree, and that the content is now much easier to translate into other languages. So that was his focus, was going through every page and making it easier for translation services to get the information almost, I don't know if it's one-to-one per se, but allows for people who speak a different language to select that language, and then our site will translate for them. So we can make sure the information we're communicating goes to them.
Is that going to be a continuing effort, improving the website, making it a little bit easier to navigate?
Yeah, it's a living, breathing thing, so it never should stay static. So we're constantly finding, you know, making sure we're up on what the best practices are and making those improvements and changes and updates.
Yeah, one of my gripes was that the information tends to be outdated.
Yeah, and part of that is also corralling and herding cats within each department and reminding them that they need to update their information. And for those departments that maybe they won't update their information, creating them a little bit more evergreen pages where they're, you know, they don't have to come in weekly or quarterly or whatever to update their content.
You probably you've probably already been asked previously, but some of the projects that we're working on is like business surveys and trying to re-engage some of the neighborhood associations. Would the communication director or your office be able to assist us with that?
Yeah, definitely. And actually, one of the things that we did recently was work with the chief and the representatives from the Washington Retail Association to create the flyer and help do some promotion of the Business Safety Public Safety Summit. It's going to be happening on Friday. So that was an example of where we partnered and did that. Definitely, we can help facilitate with the survey. I know, actually, I met with you all a few months ago now, to talk about that a little bit and what that could look like. So certainly that's something that we can use our channels and our site to help promote or educate. Mhm. Yep.
I still, I don't get on it a lot, but I still find it difficult with what I'm envisioning. I'd like to find, figuring out which portal. Sometimes it seems to take me to the apple basket instead of the pear basket. Is there a way, could I portray the dialogue of what I tried it that was so frustrating and get it to you folks and see if it's my logic that fails or if there's a
Yeah,
failure?
are you speaking specific to the website
Yeah.
or, yeah, definitely I'd welcome feedback because if there's areas where we can make improvements, we will certainly look to do that.
So if I created a script of why I didn't get where I wanted to go, then maybe you can analyze it.
Yes, feel free to email that to me. That'd be
Yeah.
fine. Yep.
Thank you.
And actually, that just triggered in my brain. The other thing I'm responsible for managing is the My Lakewood 311 app. So that duty falls to me to facilitate that and make sure departments are responding to them in a timely way, make sure our overdue requests are less. And then also just looking at the data from that and providing that to the department directors so they know, just the call volumes and all of that as it relates to what's coming in through 311. And then, of course, if there's troubleshooting and people are having issues, I get to be the lucky person to try to fix those problems. So.
I'd like to say, I think that's been a great addition. I put a lot of input to it, but when I did, it seemed responsive or things were taken care of. And I think it's a nice portal that again avoids some of the administrative hurdles. You plug it in and you folks sort out the
Mhm.
target. And it's been responsive to my use anyway.
Great, that's good to hear. Thank you for that feedback.
Anybody else?
You interact with some of the websites like Lakewood. Lakewood Life.
On Facebook? Correct, yes, so I've been a member, actually, so before I became a communications manager, I was a reporter at the News Tribune. So, and Lakewood was one of the cities I covered, so I was actually a member of that group as a reporter, just to see what people were talking about. And then when I transitioned into this role, I maintained my presence there. As Facebook has evolved, they've now allowed, when they first formed groups, a page, and this is where it gets wonky, but like you have your profile, which is like you as a person, and then you have your page, which is like you as a business or a city. Pages couldn't join. So what would happen is I was too good at responding to people. So then they'd start asking me questions in there. Now the page can come in and respond. So now that I have that ability, I'm more able to go back and forth because obviously on our end, we also have to have a record of all of our interactions. So everything that we do needs to be backed up should we ever get a public record request. And I wasn't going to start doing things that I couldn't produce in court, right? So now I can go in there. So I do. I try to at least keep a pulse on the different real active Facebook groups that are out there just to see what people are talking about, because then that allows me to know, hey, do I need to pop in here and correct something that's wrong? Or seems like people are asking a lot about this. Maybe we should put something out about it or have something on our website or get answers for people. So yes, I do use it as a way to just kind of see what folks on social media are talking about.
So you have a journalism degree, and correct?
Mhm.
So do you
Yeah.
also have like some other training with like, the websites or is this?
No, being a journalist really teaches you how to be a jack of all trades. So I'm a communications degree with journalism as my focus from the University of Washington and go Huskies. And apple cup. And I, as a journalist in the industry that continued to whittle down and take away everything and you have to learn more. One of the things I learned while doing that was the back end on websites. And I mean, photography, videography, all of that, the things that I just picked up because we had to. So, I mean, can I code and do all of that? Absolutely not. But I can look at it and copy it really well. And like, I think this does this and figure it out. I will say though, when I worked with the a professional who actually knows how to build websites to build our website. We worked really closely, which gave me the benefit of learning a lot. But if it gets super technical, I don't have that. But I did know like design and layout, how I wanted to look, how I wanted more visual, real beautiful pictures of the city, more just positive imagery of Lakewood to show people what a great city we are. And that was one of the focuses that we have been doing that. So yeah, but I've had to learn as I go along.
Very similar to MNJ. and maybe that-
Multimedia journalist? Yeah, and at one point that was one of my titles, right? Because when we started taking photographer, all the photo and the video, I was like, well, I'm doing more than just writing stories.
It's not like it was in the old days.
No, it's not. Although you go to bigger papers and it is, because they still have money, but not at the small ones.
So you do the dashboard also?
No, so the dashboard actually falls to, previously the, senior policy analyst, she was responsible for that, and now it rests with our assistant to the city manager. He's responsible for that, and I know he's currently working on, a revamp and an overhaul of it, and I think the expectation is we should have an updated dashboard by next year, early next year. I might have to step in and kind of help a little.
It's overly cumbersome.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the goal is to make things easy, right? I mean, so that's what I'm always pushing for is people shouldn't have to take 20 steps to get the information. It should just be there, right? If I want to know this, I should be able to Google it. It should pop up with the city's website and I should find what I want. That's my goal as a communication person is to help the folks who live here and those who are interested in what we're doing, be able to find it readily and easily and not have to go through like 20 different rabbit holes to find the information. So yes, I welcome feedback. If there's times where you're like, why did it take me 30 minutes to find this? That's information that I would happily receive and we can look at making improvements. So, yeah.
So that leads to my question, and with your toes in all those 20 different rabbit holes, is there anything you're aware of that, knowing you were coming to the Public Safety Affairs Committee, that is already relevant going on over there that we don't know about? Maybe we should hear.
Like in the community
In
or?
the community and the forums and the magazine, not the magazine, and the newsletters, and the feedback you get from the social or whatever.
I think one of the things that, and I've talked to the chief about this, when I came back, and I hope to work with the new chief on this, once we get that person hired, that person determines how they want to do something, but one of the things I think, and it's not unique to Lakewood, I mean, I saw that in Pierce County when I was there, and some office with the sheriff's deputies, I see it in the city I live in, is the disconnect between reality and perception, right? And people who live on social media believe that that's everything, and sometimes you're not going to get them to be able to take that step back. I mean, that ship and sail, right? But so what can we do? So if there's this perception that Lakewood is unsafe, or if there's this perception that our police aren't responding, or if there's this perception that, police are bad, right? What can we do to better put the truth out there? And so that's something, is there one thing specifically that I've seen? No. Is it the general threat of, oh, I don't feel safe when I do this, or I don't feel safe anymore going this or that, I mean, there's that's happening. So we as a city have to be tuned into that and then figure out what can we do to put the right information out there to hopefully help reassure people, let them know, in fact, that's not happening in Lakewood, and here is what is happening. And that's something I do hope to work on, not just next year, but in the coming years. What can we do to continue to communicate our police department's message and reconnect our officers with the community? Because I think, COVID really separated the public from our officers. And then you had all the other stuff that was going on with the social justice movements and everything else. And our department has always had a very strong connection with schools, with kids, with parents at our events. So if we can continue to do more to showcase those positive interactions, slowly over time, hopefully we can chip away at some of those ill-perceived ideas that something's happening that's really not.
Yeah, that word we've had, the problem we've had, And we've had such, 2 and 4 and 6 minute response times and such good interactions in every possible occasion that I get to tell people about. It's just amazing if you post something that goes wrong, how many people are just willing to chime in and say, what do you expect? It's Lakewood. It's like, is this Lakewood 1992 you're talking about? 'Cause we're not that Lakewood, and getting that expectation changed. As you're in communication, that's what sounds fascinating to me is the whole marketing campaign that needs to happen, and it's only because of what's true.
Right, yeah, and one of the things that we did do, we launched the Build Your Better Year campaign. And unfortunately, that was just starting to kind of gain the momentum, and then the pandemic hit and everything kind of just went crazy, and then I departed, and so I wasn't there to carry the water to keep pushing it, right? And then the individual who took my spot, he's trying to figure out what to do in the middle of a pandemic, so nothing on him, but he didn't carry it the same way I would have, right? Because I was there from the inception. So that's one thing we actually did ask our council to help continue some funding for that imaging campaign. With a focus, it might not be as broad as it was when it started, but again, with the focus on Lakewood is a desirable place to live and to have your business and to be. And so that will be something we'll be thinking about. And one piece of that we were doing previously was specific to law enforcement and showing those positive interactions. So I think there's always the potential, and I think that that'll be something that we'll continue to look at ways, either if it's through the professional marketing firm that we're working with, or even just in-house, going out on ride-alongs with our officers and highlighting them and showing them, or, I used to go out when they'd go to the schools and I'd take pictures of them interacting with the kids, and just that positive interaction really says a lot. And then that's when the supporters come out too, and they say, oh, we love the police, they're so great, and the kids, and my kids had so much fun today, right? So then you start to see more of a positive synergy that just goes with it, so.
One of the frustrations I have with the police is they don't tell the good things they do, like the officers, charity, they don't brag about what they do,
Right,
and it's hard to find the information out. Are you gonna be able to do that, maybe
try my best.
Yeah.
justify?
Yeah, I mean, and I know, I would tag along with the chief when he would go out, he worked closely with the Clover Park School District and would give awards to the elementary school kids. And I went along for those as much as he begrudgingly let me, take pictures and share them. So, in addition to highlighting, obviously, the top of the department, trying to do more of that. And even frankly, emphasis patrols, right? I mean, those are things that we could do a better job of showing, which again goes to the public and says, hey, actually our officers are out there and here's what they're doing. So it's just creating those new habits of, oh, I should tell Bryn that we just did this, right? Or me pestering them, okay, what do you have for me? What do you have for me? What do you have for me? And then I know I am enough that they just give me what I need. So yeah, that is something. And truthfully, as a one-person department, that is something that is hard when I'm doing that for all my departments, trying to juggle. But now with 2 people, hopefully we can set up a system where we just do a recurring, okay, this month I'm going to email these directors and ask them for these updates. Hey, do you guys have an emphasis patrol or anything we can highlight, and start fitting that in a consistent way, so we're regularly communicating it.
Everybody else? Well, thank you very much.
Thank you all for having me. I hope that you all got your magazines in the mail, but I'm gonna leave some of them out there for our visitors here. So, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for your help with this too.
Yeah.
Next up is Councilmember Brandstetter.
Well, good evening. Apologize for not being able to be there.
We're working on volume.
Is it that speaker down on the bottom too, Joanna, that needs to be turned on?
Can you try talking now, council member?
Yes, okay. Am I coming through on audio?
Yes. Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay, well, again, I apologize that I couldn't be there in person this evening, but I'm going to do that. I don't have a really a lot to pass on. That the city council has sort of wrapped up our work at least in terms of action items for the year, that I think the most significant public safety action that we've taken in the last 60 days is that we finalized what we call the legislative policy manual, and that is the documents that we share and have discussions with the different legislative groups, primarily our state legislative folks, about what we'd like to see some legislative action around to be able to go and do that. And I don't know, did you each receive a copy of what the public safety section of that was?
Yes.
Okay, so essentially the items that are on that, and I'm certainly willing to answer questions about any of them individually without going over them specifically. But that I would tell you that the item that perhaps got the greatest amount of discussion when we had an in-person meeting with the legislators from the 28th and 29th district had to do with how are they going to restructure the state's response to the Blake decision. And the Blake was the court case that essentially threw out the state's criminal statute regarding drug possession. And then an interim solution was put in place that included a combination of referrals for help before there were criminal offenses and a number of other things. It's actually the last item on the policy manual thing. And I would just say that all of them, everyone in the legislative thing indicated that they had anticipation and desire to readdress that in this legislative session. Not that all of them were in line with each other and exactly how to readdress it, but that it was something that's going to get a good bit of attention. So I would, I guess I will sort of leave it at that unless there are some questions about any of the items that are on that policy manual item. Okay. And then the city council is actually not the element of the city that is directly engaged in the selection and hiring of a new police chief. Where that's really something that is in the realm of the city manager, who is orchestrating this process and will end up being and orchestrating the decision process now that we have some finalists. So I'm as interested as the next Lakewood resident in who that is, and looking forward to tomorrow to getting a chance to meet the 6 finalists that we got a good response to having a national search to be able to go and do that, and looking for that to resolve that. But Mr. Chair, I'm willing to take any questions that anyone might have.
Last legislative session, the change in the vehicular pursuit or regulation died in the Senate. Do they have any hope that it will be brought forward this time and passed?
I guess my sound is not so good, so I didn't really grasp the actual question.
Okay, what are the chances that the legislation on the vehicular pursuits will pass the legislature this session?
There's a very high chance that it will get discussed and that there is going to be legislation introduced that, you know, around the area of vehicular pursuits. I think it remains an area that, like a year ago, that the legislature wasn't able to come together to actually pass how to change it, but they'll have the benefit of another year's worth of data about how that is working out and what the perhaps unanticipated consequences of that are. So I'm sure that there is going to be some effort to modify the rules around vehicular pursuits, but not sure that there is any consensus yet about how to do that and what a new updated policy would be. The city's position that we emphasize to are those things is that we certainly think that reasonable belief and rather than probable cause should be the basis for whether a pursuit is allowed, and that there should be some expansion of the types of offenses that a pursuit would be allowed. At the same time, while noting that Lakewood Police Department has always had a strong policy about when pursuits could take place, particularly with the idea of not doing them when they're going to create problems in public safety for not just officers, but for the other things to pursue things. But we're hoping for some changes that will reduce the incentive for people who even are being stopped by officers for things as minor as traffic violations to then take off and drive recklessly because they feel that they can't be pursued. But I don't know what's going to come out of that other than a lot of discussion at least, and perhaps some adjustment.
Anybody else have questions for the council member?
No, I have another one. What is, you've got mentioned in here, authority to appoint municipal court judges. What is that about?
That in Lakewood, we have, and the current law allows cities to appoint the judges to their municipal courts. Around the state, some cities actually have their judges being elected. There was some movement in the past 2 legislative sessions to require that all cities have their municipal court judges be elected rather than appointed. This is something that for us falls into a not broken situation. And we'd like to retain having the choice to do that, particularly since we have a municipal court judge that conducts the court for 3 different municipalities, Stelicum, DuPont, and Lakewood. And with the judge having to be elected by each city independently, it just seems unworkable and a solution to a problem that we don't have.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you, council member.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Next is, reports from the fire department.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let's see, it's been a couple months since we last met. As far as call volume, has been trending very similar, over the last couple of years, last couple months. We've been tracking about 1,500 calls a month. We had a big jump last year, and we've just been tracking, overall what we've been doing the same as last year, so. Significant calls, we've had a few residential fires, none super large. Some of them had residents displaced. Most of them have been due to electrical issues. We had one at a mobile home park over the weekend that affected 8 units, and we were able to work with the owner to get power restored kind of partially over the weekend, but most of the families were without power. We have a little nonprofit called West Pierce Cares, and we were able to give some hotel night for one of the families that had a sick child, so that was good. As far as new positions, earlier this year, we hired a connected cares position. Her name is Karen Gilbert, and she's been at it for a few months now, and she's been able to help us a lot with high utilizers of 911 calls, or people that just don't have very good resources. They don't have families that they can lean on for extra help. They don't know where to call or where to go. And so her caseload has been about 15 to 20 individuals or families that need that service. And of course, as you know, it's not just meet with them once and you're kind of done. You give them some information, you let them kind of work through some of those processes. But it's been working because they don't call 911 back. They have a list of resources now where they can go, whether it be through the city or other resources available in the county. So that's good.
What was the name of that position?
It's our Connected Cares.
Connected Cares.
Position, yeah. Karen Gilbert. She's always available to give a little overview of what she does. So that's something that you need in the future.
And how long has that program been going on?
Since about March. It's been kind of mostly full-time now since about June, so. As far as new hires, we've been working hard to get paramedics. It's tough out there, and we were gonna hope to hire up to 16, so we offered 16 job offers, and that process quickly whittles down, and we're down to 7, so. 16 people we start with, and then 7 actually decide to take it, so it's tough.
Start over again.
So you just keep going at it, so beginning of next year, we'll kind of weigh the options and see where we're at, so. We do have, if anyone's interested on our website, so for job openings, we do have an opening for an administrative assistant that closes at the end of December. And then we have an opening for emergency management coordinator And that position closes January 6th. Upcoming events, we have a couple little Santa events for kids and families. One of them is tomorrow at Station 21, 5000 Stillicum Boulevard. It's just a little something where some of the firefighters dress up in elves outfits and Santa, and we just welcome the kids. We have Trader Joe's coming in to help give some snacks and some cocoa. Kids can write letters to Santa and all that fun stuff. So that's for the next 2 Thursdays. So we'll do the first one here in Lakewood. The next one will be in University Place at our headquarters on Drexler there. And then we'll also be supporting the city with the tree lighting and holiday parade on Saturday. So that'll be a lot of fun too.
Question, the emergency management coordinator, is that a new position or is that a position that's being vacated?
It was a position that was vacated
Chris?
by Christine Badger. Yes.
So Teresa has a question. Sorry, she put it in the chat and I'm trying to find it again. She said, is there an update on the Comfort Inn / low income housing? And I asked who she would like to answer that. She said, no.
I'm not familiar with that.
Teresa, are you talking about the Aspen Court that the city invested in over on Hosmer?
I thought it was the Comfort Inn. Or is it Hosmer? Yeah, I thought
Yeah.
it's Hosmer, but I thought it was a Comfort Inn. But yeah.
Yeah, it was a former Comfort Inn
Oh, okay.
that was purchased, and the agency that is now operating it is the Lehigh, and they are an agency that supports the homeless. For the city of Lakewood assisted with some funding to allow them to buy that, with the idea that for 2 years it would operate and provide Lakewood a place for us to get homeless folks sheltered when they needed it. And it's been operating in that way, with a number of beds reserved for folks that are referred from Lakewood shelter. But the long-term plan for that facility is they're going to convert it to supportive housing, which means it'll no longer function as a shelter in emergency situations, but that people will then it's going to be remodeled into a whole series of essentially small apartments that will, and it will cease to be an emergency shelter situation to do that. So, and we understood that there was a 2-year transition window that was going to be there. We're into the 2nd year. And so there are some efforts to then still try to find some actual shelter support for folks that are in Lakewood that are on the street and need some immediate assistance to deal with homelessness. I think that there are things regionally that help families, and there are some things regionally that help veterans. But most of the things, the shelter space, beds, are actually located in the city of Tacoma, and they do not nearly have enough to handle all of the homeless folks that are there. So it remains what's the next solution that's possible. And there are a number of ideas out there to include Pierce County is moving towards looking at establishing essentially a location with over 200 micro homes that is targeted to helping chronically homeless, but there's not really a good timeline for when that will actually come to be online. It has issues with infrastructure and location, and so Lakewood supports them getting something together, but we've also got a request out to some local providers asking, what could you do that would physically be in Lakewood that would help us with supporting the different categories of homeless people? But they're just discussions at this point.
Can I address a little bit of what, I don't know, Teresa, what you were hoping to learn about the Aspen Quarter, how that's going? Lakewood did have 12 beds there, or does, and we have had some success in filling those beds, but it really comes down to the willingness of the people we offer services to take us up on that, and that's been somewhat of a struggle.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Thank you. That answers my question. Is that a resource that is, does that cross over with providing that information to people that you come across? But I guess not, because they're not necessarily homeless is what are the people that you're referring to. They just need to be.
No, our behavioral health contact team works a lot with people who are homeless. And does, they're very well connected with Aspen Court, and they do their best to connect the homeless people that they work with and see all the time to try and convince them to take them up on the offer for services and get them over there. But it has to be a repeated and ongoing effort. Nobody takes it on the first offer, and even some that, take it eventually don't always stay there. They go and it's not comfortable for them, and then they end up leaving. So it is still just this ongoing effort to convince them to accept the services that are there. But we are definitely, our behavioral health contact team is definitely connecting with a lot of the homeless folks that they come across and trying to get them into the Aspen Court.
Okay, all right. Thank you, everyone.
You can't always fill the 12 beds that are available.
It's sort of revolving. I don't know that we've been at max capacity yet, at least not for very long. We might get to like 10 or 11 beds, and then a couple of people leave, so those open up. But it's always this kind of changing number of how many people we have in there and how many beds are available.
In short, what's the objection to staying or accepting first offer?
Well, it depends on the person. Our former mental health professional, who has since retired, Carolyn Sear, she was the first MHP with our behavioral health contact team. She put it great when she said, every person is their own project that they come across. There is no one size fits all solution for all of them. A lot of them, there are rules that they have to follow when they're there that relate to drug use, that having pets and other things that they have a hard time abiding by. Some of them are just afraid of the unknown. Some of them just don't like that environment and are more comfortable living out where they're living. And some of them don't give a reason. Some of them just say no.
Almost simultaneous to the designation of that facility, within a few hundred yards, there's a city growing, 10th and Cardboard City growing, I mean, it's going to clear up the side of the freeway. They had a couple deaths out there. Seems a little distracting that those folks would take a room while that live-free city is developing out there. That's Tacoma, as far as I can tell, Tacoma.
It's on the freeway, it's on the freeway side of the fence. It's the state property.
Well, they only recently did they go over the fence, but they've now made a portal on the fence. But I go by there once in a while on the corner of 84th and Hosmer's, drive by, pick up day labor. Sometimes there's 30 people there championing their selection. And then if you come further north, it's doubled in the last few weeks, the number of tents and cardboard existing. I mean, it's spilling into the actual thoroughfare.
Well, anytime you hear stories, now if you paid attention, but anytime you hear stories about Tacoma or somebody else clearing out an encampment, they're going somewhere. They're not just moving them out and getting them into a house. And over the past month, we've seen a lot of stories about Tacoma clearing out different encampments and Seattle and Bike. So those folks are going somewhere and they might just, they'll move and start up another encampment. And that might be some of what you're seeing.
But it's getting big.
Which is a good segue into Chief Sorrow.
All right. Thanks, everybody. I do want to double back on something that Bryn was talking about as far as communication. Chris Lawler, our current PIO, has been our PIO for over 7 years, or probably close to 10 years, is retiring in January. We are going to switch models sort of on how we do things because the PIO job has changed. It used to be, and I did the job for a little bit too, where, you only dealt with the 4 main news channels. The reporters would call you, you do on-camera stuff occasionally or phone interviews, and that was it. But with the advent of social media and the proliferation of different platforms, just the job has changed completely. It's just not, it's not that anymore. So what we are doing is sort of, we've identified a sergeant, Charles Porsche, who some of you might have met in the past, but he is going to take over the primary PIO duties for Chris when Chris retires. In addition to what we're going to do is identify sort of, I guess, a team of officers that will have the authority to get on social media and our different social media platforms to put out different messages at different times of day at their discretion. Hopefully a lot positive, other things that are just of public safety or public interest. So that whole messaging piece that Bryn was talking about is changing within the department as well. So it will be more hopefully proactive in getting out different messages, and they will of course be working with Bryn too. So it's not siloed, and so we're all trying to get out the same message. Since we've talked last, we were formally accredited for the next 4 years. So this last summer, we went through a reaccreditation process through the Washington Association of Sheriffs and Police Chiefs. They are our accrediting body. This is our 3rd reaccreditation that we've gone through, and it's for 4 years. So we did it over the summer. It was particularly challenging in that our accreditation manager retired in January. So we had to put somebody in that position who had never dealt with accreditation. And any of you that have gone through it know that it is not just a one point in time task. There are ongoing things you have to keep up with in order to manage an accreditation. And reaccreditation time, somebody comes and looks at everything you've been doing and says if you're meeting standards or not. We were able to meet standards. We received our formal accreditation plaque in November. And so the department is good for another 4 years. And that for me is one of the things that the benchmarks I wanted to hit before I retired. So whoever else comes in, or whoever comes in next, doesn't have to worry about that for 4 years. So that was definitely a positive from this last quarter. there was a discussion about pursuits and some data, and I have pushed out this graph that I think has gained a lot of interest from different groups, but I looked at the number of pursuits that we've had and the number of eludes. Eludes being where somebody takes off from us and we don't chase, and pursuits being where people take off and we do chase. And what we found is that starting right about exactly when the legislation went into effect, eludes skyrocketed, and pursuits held the same. There was a marginal decrease in the number of pursuits that we had. But people taking off from us on just general traffic stops and stolen cars or unlicensed cars or suspicious vehicles, that has gone through the roof to where we were seeing like one a day in some months. And we know that when people do elude from us and take off from an attempted stop, they don't start driving safely just because they've gotten away from us. They're driving recklessly, still endangering the public around them. So from my perspective, that legislation has made our communities less safe because they've increased the incidents where people are driving recklessly through traffic to try and get away from us. So I have shared that data with the Association of Sheriff and Police Chiefs. I've shared it with the Association of Washington Cities, with our state's lobbyists, with our, not all of our state lawmakers, but a couple. So they know the problem is out there. It's whether or not they choose to address it. And there was a discussion about the Blake decision. Something that is sort of related to that, that's going to be coming down the pike here in Lakewood, is what we've seen is an increase in people using drugs just out in the open. And a lot of that is smoking fentanyl, literally just out on the side of the road. And when officers contact them, they say, oh, there's nothing you can do about it. Several jurisdictions have enacted different codes, and we are looking at doing the same that specifically prohibits the use of different kinds of drugs in public. What the state has said as far as drug possession is they are the only entity, and this is by law, that can regulate drug possession. Drug use, however, there is some flexibility for local codes to be enacted to regulate that. So that is what we're looking at now. We're going to make sure that it's, we're working with our legal department. We're going to make sure that it's compliant with Blake and with state law, but to give our officers some tool for when we are seeing that out in public. And I've seen literally, and not off some beaten path, but on 100th Street at South Tacoma Way. So very, very out in the open and very public. And I think it is something worth addressing. So we are looking at that. We are in obviously the holiday season. So we are doing what we've done for the past probably 4 or 5 years is our retail theft emphases in the town center area, and just trying to have a bigger, a more visible presence throughout town center to help deter any criminal activity, whether it's theft or vehicle prowls or anything else that might, go on during the holiday season. So we have that going on. Brandon mentioned the retail public safety summit this Friday. We are holding a meeting over at City Hall with business owners throughout Lakewood and some business associations just to talk about retail theft, organized retail theft, and what some of the trends are and what Lakewood is doing and can and can't do to help combat that. And then for hiring, we are still doing really well. You hear a lot about police departments struggling to hire people. We're doing good. We just got, remember that big batch of hires that we had where there was 7 in one academy class. they are just coming off of training and being assigned out to patrol squad. So we're starting to see our staffing, our street staffing come back up. So we're going to be able to start backfilling now some of the units that we had to shut down during, or after we had all those resignations and retirements last year. So doing very well, still getting some good applicants coming in. And I have convinced the city manager that it is going to be imperative if you want to keep some of these units open and working to keep hiring and overhire in anticipation of retirements and resignations, because I know that even aside from me, we're going to see maybe 5 or 6 retirements next year. And then in 2024, we're going to see another significant number of retirements, mostly sergeants at that time. So it's going to be important for whoever comes in behind me to maintain that hiring level. It takes a lot of work, but we're getting good people. And if we want to maintain our service levels, that's what we'll have to do. And then finally, sort of along the lines of hiring, Councilmember Branstetter mentioned the chief search. We are down to 6 finalists after receiving, I think, 12 or 13 applications from around the country. 2 from in-state, 4 from out of state, varying backgrounds on each of them. So it's been interesting. We had a meet and greet here at the station today for department members. I know tomorrow is a big day. There are 3 different panels that each one will go to. I think Alan's actually on one of them as an interviewer. And then tomorrow night at City Hall, there is a public meet and greet. So if any of you wanted to go and meet them, tomorrow night at City Council or in City Council chambers would be your opportunity. And then Friday morning, they all get interviewed by the city manager, our assistant city manager, and Bryn actually will be in on those interviews as well. So after all that, then the city manager will be able to make a decision. I don't expect it to be on Monday, but probably by the end of December, we'll at least have the person identified. So that is all I have to throw at you for tonight, but I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I have a question about, can you talk about the state? You said the state regulates drug use. Is that a switch? Is that what you mean?
Drug possession. So
Drug possession, sorry.
right, when the Blake decision first happened, the state passed their fix was, and remember, the Blake decision vacated all drug possession. I don't remember the reasoning behind it, but all drug possession laws and convictions in the state of Washington. The legislature then had to move to fix that, and they could have enacted basically the same laws, but with a couple language fixes, but instead enacted rules where rather than arrest, there had to be a deferral or a referral for treatment. It was really a de facto legalization of drugs. But what a lot of municipalities started looking at was, well, we'll just enact our own ordinances. But when all the lawyers and the legal departments started looking at the RCWs, per state law, the regulation of drug possession is reserved for the state legislature. So, and that's was news to me, but it hadn't, nobody needed to address it before then either. So that's what I mean when I talk about the state having that authority.
So you have to catch them in the act. But usually,
Well, yes, for the new codes that we're talking about, that would be the idea, yes.
you have 96 officers
Yes,
and you're going to be authorized. How many?
that meant,
Oh, okay. You're not going to be, well, if you get your overstaff position, will you, how many more would you have?
that is sort of a floating number. I've been authorized just to overhire, and I am going to hire until I'm told to stop. So, and really it comes down, it's the city manager's it's under his authority that, I'm able to overhire.
Mhm.
And every hire has to go through him. And when I do present a hire to him, I tell him where we're at. So it's always a discussion about where we're at and how many overhires we have. But, he knows, I kept him apprised of the anticipated retirements and the turnover. So he knows the importance of overhiring. So right now, the discussion is really just to hire. So
So. in the
there is not a
next-
hard number.
In the next 2 years, it's gonna be down roughly 10, 12.
That's probably a good rough number, yes.
So you're gonna keep hiring till you get 115 maybe?
Well, if I can get to 115 before February 17th, then absolutely. But hiring is a process. And we're just gonna keep moving on through that process and testing and everything else until we are told to stop.
That's what I heard.
And that holiday enhancement enforcement, shoplifting gonna hit that list?
Oh, yeah, that's a big part of it. And we've also been doing our retail theft emphases where, and we've done, I think, 3 or 4 of them now where we work with a single retailer. We'll have unmarked units and marked units go and do not, their goal for the night is just to sit there with the one retailer, work with their in-store security, identify shoplifters, take them into custody as they're leaving, and then take them to jail. And, we're not recovering high dollar amounts, but we are recovering merchandise and holding people accountable and sending the message that Lakewood is, they'll take you to jail if you get caught shoplifting there. And that makes a difference. The word getting out about that does make a difference. And one interesting story from a recent emphasis, which was at Safeway over here on Gravelly. They actually arrested one guy who stole a bucket of chicken from the deli who had $300 cash in his pocket. Yeah, so just an ability to pay, just thought, why bother? So we're going to be doing more of those. The next one isn't scheduled until January, but we're doing more of those as well.
If those stationary video cameras, things, are they an advantage to you guys or are they just more show than anything?
It's kind of hard to say. I'm always a fan, any kind of visible deterrence you can put up. It's, might be a little hard to measure the effect, but every little bit helps. So if you have something up where everybody sees it and knows that it's being recorded, by all means, do it.
Do you guys get the video from them?
We can, yeah. If there's something that happens and the store calls us and they have video of it, then yeah, we can get that.
Recently there was a armed robbery at Walmart. Is that correct? Is that a new trend?
No, I think, so defining robbery, little less legal lesson, is using physical force to take something from somebody as opposed to theft. Now, it's real easy for a shoplift to turn into which is a theft, turn into a robbery if force is used. So I believe in the one you're talking about, store security went to stop them for shoplifting, and there was some amount of force used by the suspects to get away with the stuff, which turned it into a robbery. And then if it's the one we're thinking of, ended up in a crash up in University Place.
Is this a new trend or is it just that security tried to stop them?
No, I mean, it's every shoplift where it has that potential, where a store employee tries to stop the person. It's not necessarily a trend that we've always seen that from my entire career in law enforcement. We've seen that, there is a certain number of shoplifts where for, whoever they're stopping, they don't want to stop and they're going to use force to get away with the stuff. And that turns it into a robbery. So it's not necessarily a trend or anything new.
We had that shooting right over by the mall. We see that every night on television. Is that something that is gonna be moving and be more prevalent, you think, here in Lakewood, or was that a unique one, or?
Well, I think how brazen that one was and out in the open, I think that's unique. We've been for the past couple of years seeing an increase in the number of calls for shots fired, whether it's shooting at a house, shooting up in the air, shooting at a person. Those have been on the increase for the past couple of years for whatever reason. I have no good explanation for that. Something like that, I do believe that they were shooting at a specific person, not the one that they hit. But they were targeting somebody that was less than cooperative with us afterwards. So, and we do see that from time to time as well.
So is that a game related thing or?
So it's certainly that's the suspicion right now, yes.
Are they gangs or are they just disorganized?
Well, I don't know,
Gangs are more organized in my perception.
that's a little bit of an older perception because the gangs that we see now are not the organized hierarchies that we saw back in the 90s, in the 80s. They're really more smaller cliques now that connect online and through social media and do have these conflicts that result in violence. But a lot of times it's more about interpersonal conflicts and getting even for a personal wrong than it is about one gang controlling another or controlling an area like we used to see.
I caught that, you were implying I was old. That's implicit bias.
Well,
Mark it down.
then let me remove any implications and just say you are. I'd hate to be confused.
He's
I'm not.
confessed that in public a couple of times, so.
The good and the bad is there are terrible shots.
Right. Right. Yeah, it is scary. And I know when Bryn talked about the perception. There is a lot that goes into a sense of safety in a community. Very little of it has to do with actual victimization. It has to do with the stories that people hear about crime and about violence. And one story like that can rattle an entire city, even though it might be unique and you might not have another one of those for years. It just leaves people with a sense of feeling unsafe. And it's not just in Lakewood. People are watching stories from around the region, and that leads to a general feeling that society isn't safe. So it's not necessarily Lakewood. It's just this sense that people have that there's a lot of violence going on.
I've talked to two retailers in the last 6 months that are in Lakewood, the staff, and I've almost got run over. I was actually pushed aside by one of the folks taking a wagon load of stuff. And they say they have to open the door for them if they're going, so they can save the door and say, thank you for stealing from us today. And a couple of them are identified as regulars. And what were Bass Pro the last 6 months? They got 2 or more guys on every shift all day that look like they could be mercenary, tactical or tactical. And then I wouldn't mess with them. They're dressed in tactical gear. They're standing tall or young or buff. They carry a lot of equipment. Why is Bass Pro able to do that and other places can't mimic it successfully? Budget?
Well, that is company policy. I mean, it's how much a company wants to invest in something like that. How much a tolerance for risk that they have, because there's a lot of risk when you strap a gun to an employee and tell them to, stop the bad guys. You're assuming a lot of risk. So there's different tolerances for that, and it's really that is going to be a corporation by corporation and store by store policy.
I feel safe in here. I wish they'd come some other places. But they speak at least that there's no differentiation. It's either something's not supposed to happen or it's okay. And they claim they go into action. One's on roaming patrol and one's at the exit. If you ever go over there, feel confident about what's going on there.
As a retailer, we have to decide whether security inhibits sales enough to be worth it. We have insurance and we're aware and we call the police quickly. But we've had people volunteer to come and stand at the door and have people say we should lock the door and put a buzzer on it, buzz people in, which jewelry stores used to do. But we feel like we'll lose more customer confidence in sales that way than we will save in theft. Keep our eyes open and report. All we can do.
I'm just gonna remind everybody that, this is the chief's last PSAC meeting. So just wanted to make note of that, in case you guys run away.
Oh,
And we do have some snacks over here. We want to take a moment.
I think you should come back. We've got cherries reserved for you.
I'll zoom in.
We just as a group wanted to take a moment to say, we appreciate, thank you, everything you've done for Lakewood and the community and the department.
I'm glad to, and it's, you know, the kind of the old cliche is you'll miss the people, but not the work. And, you know, the groups that I've worked with on PSAC have been varied over the years, but I've always generally enjoyed the interactions that we've had. And I know that there's times where as a group, you feel like you're struggling for purpose and to feel like you're impacting Lakewood, but just trust me when I say you are, if this group were to dissolve in, you know, a year's time, there'd be a cry for some group like this to get together, and you'd be getting together every week to try and recover from a year's worth of not meeting every other month. And that's there's a tremendous value in just having you hear and bringing your thoughts together and hearing from the fire department and from us, and just coming to us with public safety concerns. There might not be a lot of them, but I hate to break it to you, that's a good thing. And so you all do a very good job in providing the council what they need, providing the fire department and the police department what we need, and allowing for collaboration. So thank you. It's been a rewarding time here in Lakewood, and part of that has been my work with PSAC. So thank you.
I just wanted to say, I haven't worked with you very long, but I read some of your, I read the article in the magazine today and talked about you being so humble.
Mm.
And it's so typical. Here we're trying to thank him. And he turns it around and tells us how wonderful we are.
Well,
So yeah, you truly are consistent with that. And I think that's rare with the police chief, and I'm sure that you have endeared yourself to many people because of that.
that's nice. Thank you.
I think their leadership's a reflection on the whole department. It really is. The officers we run into, like the neighborhood associations, or when we have to have contact with them, I'm really proud of the police department.
Oh, it's nice to hear.
Can I ask one last question? How much did,
You promise it's the last one?
one of the last ones,
Okay.
beginning of the end,
Okay.
do you have any preliminary figures from the food drive?
We do, as a matter of fact, and I will turn that over to Joanna.
So they picked up the bins on Tuesday morning, and they have not given me a number from that yet. And that means all the bins from all the locations. But the last number they gave me, we were just over 5,000 pounds of food. And again, keeping in mind that money is still coming in, so this number will change as well. We were right about, it was like 12,800, almost $13,000 in donations. Monetary.
How does that compare with last year?
So
The food poundage is about half of what we've seen last year, maybe even less than that. But the money is pretty comparable. We're usually in the ballpark of $15,000 that we take in for the emergency food network. the pounds in food is usually about 10 or 12 also. So we're, the amount of food we brought in was less, but the money is,
But if you prorate the amount of the food cost,
right. Yeah, that's true.
What about the blood drive?
Again, we had 86 registrations, which is fabulous. And they even snuck extra in on me without telling me, and I was panicking, thinking that we weren't filling. No, they just threw extra appointments in because we're so awesome and we fill them. Right. We filled them. But they had a computer glitch on the first day, and they turned away over 16 donors because they couldn't get their, yeah. And that was what they counted, and I watched people standing in the lobby, hearing people being turned away and just turn around and walk away. So I know that they turned away more than that. So we ended up with, what they say, it was 50 or 55. Now I'm getting my numbers mixed. So we ended up with only 50 or 55 donors, but we had over 86 registered and people that came in and tried. It wasn't our fault. We were there. We did the best we could. I think
It was
that's-
still a success.
Yeah, huge
55
success.
donations is big.
And I think 6 of them were all brand new donors, people who've never donated before, so that's a win too, to get that habit going in people.
any other questions? Thank you again, Chief.
All right.
You still do not have a youth council?
We have 4 or 5, and I sent it to all of them, so I'm unclear what happened. So I'll check in.
Keep working.
Yep.
All right, to our unfinished business. I guess we're still holding off on the city council business safety survey. One of the things we want to get through, want to look at with, to the new chief. Got a chance to, his input, what they were looking, what he was looking for.
Yeah, whatever he or she is I think it's important to find out what that next chief wants out of the survey. So that's why we put it off to see, just to wait until that next person comes in.
So I think we've got a good framework. We'll just keep that on hold, keep that in our back pocket and play that card when it's ready. Big one is the finalizing the 2023 work plan.
I make a motion, we accept the work plan as presented.
And then second,
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That would be.
No kidding. I like it. Thanks, guys.
I'm still not real clear on our, the neighborhood association roadmap.
It's Mike. I actually have a little conversation with Mike that if he's still there, maybe he'll want to talk about it. And the essence of it is that when the city decided to promote neighborhood association, they had to have some kind of districts or way to divide the city up, and they looked at the map and said, look, that will work. And so that's basically how it's laid out. And the districts haven't changed really, so they're the same. So that 2006 map is accurate as accurate it's going to be. Is that about right, Mike? Oh, what's going on?
Councilmember Branstad?
I guess I slid by. He gave me a little more detail on some stuff that was going on in that happened. In that.
So we still have quite a few in hibernation. Any thoughts on reaching out, touching base? See where, if they have any plans to reactivate or.
One thing I can tell you too is the city did budget for a position. I don't remember the title of the position, but some a position whose responsibilities would be to reach out and connect with the different community groups. So that whenever that person is hired, I think they might be good to connect with you to talk about reinvigorating some of the neighborhood associations.
Yeah, I would just say that, we are looking at trying to reinvigorate the neighborhood association concept. It's not trying to just re-energize what were or are existing neighborhood associations, but we're really looking for some neighborhoods to define themselves, what their neighborhood is, and then see the value in forming an association and then engaging with the city to do that. You know, the model of one neighborhood association per police district is not necessarily the one that we're trying to replicate. We're trying to get neighborhoods to organize around their own issues with whatever footprint they feel is appropriate. I mean, even some of the existing, in fact, I'll use Lake City, for instance. Lake City is now has a focus on a much smaller area than the police district that they're situated in terms of their participation. So, you know, and in Springbrook, the former neighborhood association sort of phased itself out. Springbrook Connections has sort of taken its space, but it has a different geographic footprint and a different way of moving about doing it. So like it to be stronger than it is, but we don't necessarily know exactly what any given neighborhood association needs to look like.
Teresa, you had a question?
A comment, maybe Alan can chime in as well. If you want a test group, I suggest the Nyanza Park neighborhood. And we can probably start with everyone that's in the Facebook group. I think we would have a lot of involvement and it would be a good starting point. Alan, I don't know if you.
Yeah, I think Bruce got an interesting idea. That was suggested to me a few times was that in our little Rebecca Drive neighborhood, that we have a common Facebook page to try to unite people. I never had the technical skills to do that, nor the inclination to do it. But I think that's certainly one way of pulling people together. And that Springbrook Connections started doing that. And it keeps me informed, certainly. And it does tie people together. So one way of doing it. And if we might want to add that to the Patrick has written up.
Yeah, and I was wondering if maybe Bren might be able to kind of guide us or give some input on reaching out to the different neighborhood Facebook groups that you still have awareness or the visibility on those.
Yeah, because I have the Facebook page, that group. It's pretty good. They're very active. They report incidents that are going on that happen. So they usually have a posting, I think, just about every day.
That's active. Any other thoughts on the neighborhood association?
North Lakewood didn't meet, they canceled the meetings.
Springbrook Connections had a meeting last month concerning the homeless problem. I wasn't able to attend. I was visiting the meeting. I haven't gotten hold of them to find out what the outcome was. we'll try to get to the next meeting to see if they have an outcome of this discussion. But their Springbrook is connections are pretty active. They're looking at issues like homeless. We'll have one issue to focus on each month.
I'm just wondering if, again, she's got a lot on her plate, but Brennan and her team, again, reaching out to the Facebook groups that she's aware of. And somehow posing that question, if they've even thought about it. If they'll-
The room is something.
I think that when the new the outreach person comes on, I think that might be the perfect task for them.
Yeah.
Is to do exactly this problem.
Do you have any idea when they have a deadline or hiring date?
No, you know as much as I do now.
I can,
Anything else on our unfinished business? New business, preview of. Alan, help me out, preview of next meeting, February 1st. What am I looking at?
If we look at the work plan that y'all
Okay.
just approved.
yeah, we got. Home, family home, Western State. Plan.
City parks, ask the park rep to speak, and summer fest plan. According to the plan.
Are you looking at the 2023?
Pardon?
Did you look at the 2023 one?
I thought so.
Yeah, one adult group,
We want to go group home.
2022.
and one adult group family revitalization. Oh, we had a.
Oh, wait a minute. No, I'm not.
I was like, where did I write that?
Okay, adult group, family group. I can, again.
So if that's what we're doing, what is it, who is it that you guys want me to get to speak and what do you want me to ask them to speak on?
I think one of the things came up, didn't we talk about somebody from Western State coming to tell us about what's going on and where they're headed out there?
Canada, I know they're doing rebuilding. What does that look like? What is the impact of the city?
And they're still struggling with no accreditation, right?
Well, that's been a while since somebody brought that up, but yeah, I think that's still the case if they lost it.
We had a speaker from Western State 2-3 years ago.
It's been a while.
Yes.
I
Pre-pandemic,
can tell you who it was, David Holt.
David retired. So
Yeah,
he
he
was
was
part of
there.
the revolving door of CEOs out there.
So if we invite somebody now, will be gone by January.
Could be,
There's always that chance, but we'll find somebody.
leave a note on the desk, please.
It's very important.
All right, reports from board member, community outreach.
Oh, we kind of did that under
Okay, kind of did the,
neighborhood associations. Yeah.
open discussion. Anybody got any news, thoughts? Okay. Making it easy.
Well, everybody has a great holiday. and Happy New Year. Merry Christmas.
Mark brought some.
Yeah, and I-
Okay, celebrate.
And I didn't want to be so cliche as to bring donuts.
Oh, I did earlier. There's one of them.
So we got some muffins and some cookies. Just want to take a moment to say thank you for all your service.
Oh, that's very interesting.
Celebration.
All right.
The motion to adjourn,
So moved.
Second.
all those in favor?
All right.
Merry Christmas, everybody. Happy New Year. Okay, James.
You guys can, come on down for a cupcake if you want.
Want me to bring you a cupcake? Bruce said you'll have to bring your cupcake? What was that message? I don't know.
James, Mark.
I
Okay.
asked my son if he wanted to come in and he said no. And I don't think he understands what is really happening.
I got some cookies over here. James, Mark offered to bring you one. Do you want to bring you one?
Good night, everyone.
He's giving a message undercover.
Right.
Yeah.
Have a good night. Have a Merry Christmas. Happy holidays.
Virtual reality, that's the APAC conference. Oh, so, yes. Reach out to me. I'll get that. So we actually want to get,